Around the year 375 BC, the philosopher Plato sat down to describe one of the most haunting metaphors in human history, the allegory of the cave. He imagined a group of prisoners chained inside a cavern since childhood, forced to stare at a single blank wall. Behind them, a great fire burns. Between the fire and the prisoners, puppeteers carry objects across a raised walkway, casting shadows on the wall in front of the captives. To the prisoners, these flickering silhouettes are not just shapes, they are the entirety of existence. They name them, study them, and compete to see who can predict their movements most accurately. Plato wrote, "To them, the truth would be literally nothing but the shadows of the images." He intended this as a warning about the nature of education and the soul. He had no idea that 2,400 years later, we would build a digital version of this cave and carry it in our pockets. We think we are exploring the vastness of human knowledge when we open YouTube, but through a Platonic lens, we are merely leaning deeper into the darkness. We aren't watching reality, we are watching a highly optimized, hyper-curated projection of it. YouTube is not just an app, it is the modern cave, and the algorithm is the fire that dictates exactly which shadows we are allowed to see. The digital cave. In the 7th book of the Republic, Plato describes the prisoners as being held by chains on their legs and necks, so that they cannot move and can only see before them. In the 21st century, our chains are no longer made of iron. They are made of dopamine, infinite scroll, and autoplay buttons. The YouTube interface is the architecture of the cave. It is a closed ecosystem designed to keep the prisoner facing the screen, ensuring that their field of vision never wanders toward the light of unmediated reality. The comfort of the cave is its greatest trap. Plato noted that the prisoners don't want to leave because the shadows are familiar and entertaining. On YouTube, the UI, user interface, acts as the physical boundary of the cave. The sidebar of recommended videos ensures that the prisoner's gaze is always directed toward the next flickering image. We are chained by the sheer efficiency of the platform to anticipate our desires. When you spend 4 hours in a rabbit hole, you are fulfilling Plato's prophecy of the captive who becomes obsessed with the shadows. You aren't learning about the world, you are learning about the representation of the world. The truth of the platform is a manufactured one, where the architecture itself prevents you from looking away. We are not just viewers, we are inhabitants of a space where the walls are made of pixels and the floor is made of data points, all designed to keep us stationary, staring at the wall. Shadows and puppeteers. Plato describes the puppeteers as those who carry all sorts of vessels and statues and figures of animals made of wood and stone and various materials, which appear over the wall. On YouTube, the creators are the puppeteers. We, the editors, the streamers, the essayists, are the ones standing behind the prisoners holding up our content to the fire. We do not show the prisoners the real objects. We show them the most engaging shadows those objects can cast. Every thumbnail is a shadow. Every clickbait title is a shadow. When a creator films a day in the life video, they aren't showing you their life. They are showing you a carefully lit, color-graded, and edited projection of a life. It is a statue of reality, not reality itself. We use the various materials of editing software, music cues, and scripted drama to ensure the shadow is as mesmerizing as possible. Plato suggests we commodify perception. The creators compete to see whose shadow can be the most vivid, the most radicalizing, or the most comforting. We flatten the complexity of human existence into a 10-minute narrative arc. The prisoner, the viewer, begins to believe that the world is the shadow. They believe politics is a series of 30-second owned clips. They believe travel is a montage of drone shots. Because they believe human connection is a comment section. The puppeteers are not necessarily evil, but they are trapped in the same cave, forced to keep the shadows moving or risk losing the prisoner's attention entirely. The algorithmic fire. In the allegory, the shadows are only possible because of a fire burning at a distance, which provides the light. Without the fire, the cave is just a dark hole. In the modern ecosystem, the fire is the recommendation algorithm. It is the artificial energy source that powers the entire spectacle. It is the light that chooses which objects, content, get to cast a shadow on your specific wall and which are left in the dark. Plato understood that the source of the shadows is just as important as the shadows themselves. themselves. The fire is not the sun. It is an artificial terrestrial light. Similarly, though the algorithm is not a window into truth, it is a mathematical filter designed to maximize watch time. It doesn't care if the shadow is true. It only cares if the shadow is sticky. It radicalizes the light, intensifying the shadows that provoke fear, anger, or obsession, because those are the shadows that keep the prisoners from turning their heads. The algorithm creates what Plato might call a shadow logic. If you watch one shadow of a specific political ideology, the fire adjusts its position to ensure every subsequent shadow confirms that initial shape. This is the echo chamber as a Platonic cave. The light source is programmed to hide the exit. It creates a self-reinforcing reality where the prisoner feels they are seeing the whole wall, but they are actually only seeing the narrow spectrum of light the fire is allowed to cast. The fire is the engine of the cave's economy, converting our attention into the heat that keeps the shadows dancing. The blinding light. The most famous part of Plato's story is the escape. He asks us to imagine a prisoner who is forced to stand up and turn his neck round and walk and look towards the light. Plato notes that this process is physically painful. The light of the sun hurts the eyes of someone who has lived in the dark. They will be confused and will likely believe that the shadows which he formerly saw are truer than the objects which are now shown to him. This is the digital detox phenomenon. When we finally put the phone down and walk into the real world, it feels slow, it feels boring, it feels unedited. Without the fire of the algorithm to highlight the most exciting parts of life, the real world seems overwhelming and gray. We have become so used to the hyper-stimulated shadows of YouTube that the sunlight of actual human interaction or silent reflection feels blinding and uncomfortable. Plato warns that if the escaped prisoner returns to the cave to tell his friends the truth, they would laugh at him. They would say his eyes were ruined by the sun and that it's not even worth trying to leave. We see this today in the way we mock those who touch grass or disconnect. We have reached a point where the simulated reality of the platform feels more real and meaningful than the world outside. The escape is not just a physical act of closing a tab, it is the agonizing mental process of retraining our eyes to see a world that isn't optimized for our engagement. The return journey. Plato's ultimate conclusion is that the philosopher's duty is to go back into the cave even if it's dangerous, but he admits that the returning prisoner will be terrible at the shadow-guessing games because his eyes are no longer adjusted to the darkness. He wrote, "Anyone who has common sense will remember that the bewilderments of the eyes are of two kinds and arise from two causes, either from coming out of the light or from going into the light. In our context, this is the struggle of the conscious creator or the mindful viewer. Once you see the puppeteers and the fire for what they are, the game of YouTube becomes different. You can no longer watch a video without seeing the edit. You can no longer scroll the homepage without seeing the chains. You are in a state of permanent bewilderment, caught between the digital shadows and the physical sun. The tragedy of the modern cave is that the exit is always right there, but the shadows have become so sophisticated that we no longer believe there is a sun at all. We have built a cave so entertaining that we have forgotten it is a prison. Plato's Allegory wasn't a call to destroy the cave, but a call to recognize it, to realize that the screen in your hand is casting shadows, not truth. As Plato said, the goal is the turning round of the soul, not just looking at different shadows, but changing the direction of our gaze entirely. Plato believed that the state of being a prisoner was the natural starting point for all of us. We are born into a world of handed down opinions and flickering images. YouTube has simply taken that ancient human condition and turned it into a business model. It has perfected the art of casting shadows. The next time you find yourself lost in a 3-hour loop of content, remember the prisoners of 375 BC. They were naming shadows just like we are naming trends. They were competing for status in the dark, just like we are competing for likes. The cave hasn't changed, it just got a higher resolution. The question Plato leaves us with isn't whether the shadows are good or bad, it's whether we are brave enough to face the pain of the sunlight and realize that the most important things in life are the ones that can never be uploaded.